Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. Hope everybody's having a lovely evening. I made tea, and I didn't even bring it to myself. How dumb is that? Man, right off the bat, just swinging for the fences, right? Already late for the stream, showing up. Give me a second, let me go get my tea. This is super humiliating. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Yeah, my bad. Been kind of, man, I have been all over the place today. I'm having to go through these, like, teacher training module things at work, and it is taking a substantially larger amount of my time than I thought that it would. And that has made the last couple of days especially full. Just very, very full. So, I get home and I'm already kind of like, ugh. And then it's like, work on stream stuff. And I'm like, ugh. And I was trying to, I don't know if you all were around when we were talking about Japan last week. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. Fidelia, thank you so much for 18 months. That's like 2 Twitch babies. Thank you so much for that subscription. I really do appreciate it. So I was saying, back when we were doing the Japan stream from a couple of weeks ago, the stream cut several times. So I came back here about an hour before stream and got into DaVinci Resolve, and I was going to knit it together. And then I forgot it took forever to render this, almost 2-hour long clip. So I knew better than to try to run OBS at the same time that I was getting raided by Steve. Is that not why you are here? Steve Sketches. What's up, man? How's it going? I need to be around your world more. Dun 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 dun. Benny Wee Wee. Thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. For those of you that don't know me, coming in from Steve's awesome raid, hello and welcome. My name is Shane, and I teach history and sociology at college. And yeah, we talk history here on stream, but it's not like super boring history stuff. It's the good stuff where we talk about things in a way that's approachable, and it's not just like copy the definition off the board kind of crap. I need to shove your world into my face more. Yeah, I agree. I need to shove my face into your world more. I was commenting earlier. So I took a lot of time off during the break. So, like Christmas break, it runs, for me, it ran the week, a little bit before Christmas, the week of Christmas, and then until like the 3rd. And I really didn't do very much Twitch at all. Like, I streamed only intermittently, and I didn't watch Twitch at all. I sort of just wanted to, kind of like, bleh. And then I came back to work. And as soon as I came back to work, I started doing these, I have to do this big training stuff to make me a better online teacher at work. And what's up, Tuna? And so I started that like as soon as I got back from break. So not only did I have like beginning of the semester stuff, then I also had beginning of the semester stuff and a whole bunch of meetings, and then I had also this training kind of on top of that. And I don't necessarily get to decide when I do a lot of these things because it has a lot of time limits. Where like if you don't turn this particular assignment in by this day, they kick you out of the course and stuff like that. So it's just a lot of stuff, and I got kind of swamped there. But I'm kind of getting back into a groove of like feeling okay-ish, even with the accelerated amount of work that I'm having to do. So hopefully when I get home from work, I won't be just like totally dead and want to collapse, and I'll be able to catch people's streams some more. So I'm doing what's called Quality Matters Nixolotl. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a company that that basically convinces colleges and universities to send their teachers to this stuff to be better teachers. Steve, seriously, anytime, man. You have my number. You can call me whenever. I don't care. If you need somebody to talk to, man, you call me. Don't hesitate. I don't care what I'm doing. That's way more important, right? Let's see. A better online teacher. With your experience, you should be teaching that class. I agree, and I could set the class up way better than the class is currently being set up. Because I'll tell you this, if I ran my online classes the way that they run their online training, every single one of my students would drop, and the ones that stayed around would fail, because it's messy. No, they haven't seen my streaming screen, Herring. I don't talk about streaming at work. I don't know how many people actually know that I stream at work. What's up, Calmart? I was thinking about you. Well, we can say that. Sure, absolutely. You love the Rage Against the Machine title? Yeah, it is. It's rather relevant. It is rather relevant. Yeah, I love Rage Against the Machine. Steve forgot he had my number. That's okay, man. Anytime. Seriously. Blackboard course. So this is like a whole outside third party where they had to pay like lots of money to put me into this course. They were super into discussions. Online students don't like discussions. Yeah, that's true. They see them as sort of perfunctory and fill in the blank kind of stuff. We're being visited by a puppy. You want to come and see me? You can get to see some of the puppy here, maybe. Come over here. Come on. Come on. Come on. There's the puppy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, hello. Oh, yes, the puppy. It's the Kaylee Poo. There's the puppy. You big baby. What are you doing? Do I get to give feedback? Yes. At the end of each individual module, I get to give feedback on how I think it went. And I do. And it's not... It's rather direct. If they want my feedback, I'm happy to give it to them. Last one was like, you really need to ask more than just these 4 questions 8 different times and slightly reword them, because that gets really, really annoying. Can we rate it? Rate what? No, I don't think so. Just went to get some stuff I bought on Facebook Marketplace. The guy has a pet dingo. Well, I guess that works, because Meg, I forgot that you're in the Down Under. So that works. What's up, Infernal? Good to see you. Lots of people here. Anyway, I forgot to give shout outs to everybody. Steve Sketches, man of the hour, brings the giant grade in. He's a good guy, and he's an amazing artist, and you should go hang out with him. He's been doing some sketchathons lately where you can get some really cheap art that looks really, really nice and help a guy out. So go give Steve all of your money and your love. We've got Nixolotl in the room, who is artist extraordinaire. Go give Nix a follow. We've got my buddy Infernal in the room, who is mostly doing gameplay stuff right now, but is incredibly intelligent, and you get good good intellectual content while you're watching a fun game to play. So you can't really argue with two good things when you put them together. It's like pickles and Nutella. It just magically goes together in ways that you wouldn't think are actually good. So there we go. So tonight we are doing a viewer request stream because that's what we do on Tuesdays, right? Every other Tuesday we do a viewer request stream. Must be a Mississippi thing. Babies ate. Oh wow, that's rabid babies ate the dingo. That's a bit of an inversion of the story there, but okay, I guess. The pickles and Nutella thing was mostly just to see if people were paying attention. I've never actually tried that. I have had chocolate-covered pickles before, and they're surprisingly good, but I've never actually had Nutella and pickles. That was purely just, let's see if they're paying attention. I do this with my class sometimes, and I've been having to do that a lot today because my classes today were both rather sleepy and not particularly responsive. So I'm probably still a little bit too much in goofy teacher mode, which is okay, but not necessarily the way that I really like to be around you all, because you all are here because you are voluntarily wanting to be. Cadbury's Vegemite. Does Cadbury's actually make a Vegemite? I mean, I would try it because I'm very adventurous with food, and I'll try anything. You're bitter on the inside, basically. Pickles are not bitter. Pickles are one of my favorite things. I had pickle relish on my hot dogs today, and I put more pickle relish on there than I probably should have because it almost overwhelmed the hot dog taste, right? By definition, sour plus sweet plus salty should work, right, Tuna? There's a magic sort of formula there. We're a bunch of weirdos who actually want to learn about stuff for fun, right? I know, it's crazy. Nobody's here because it fills a blank on their requirement sheet to graduate. You're just here for the gold stars, right? Maybe that should be an emote, like a gold star. I need to get some more emotes. I need to put some more effort back into sprucing up the channel a little bit. I keep saying I'm going to do that, and then what ends up happening is I don't, for whatever reason. That doesn't mean I don't love you all. It just means that I made a decision when I started streaming that Twitch streaming is for fun and it's not supposed to be a job, right? So when Twitch stuff and like maintenance for the stream and prep for the stream starts feeling like a job, my first response is to sort of just stop. I know that seems sort of blunt, but I don't want this to turn into something that I start to resent, if that makes any sense. Because I really enjoy the time that we get to spend together, and I mean that completely honestly. They did a limited run, sold out, now on eBay for like $500. Whew! I don't think I want to try it that bad, Magnificent, but that does sound interesting. Yeah, I know, no test, right? Except for that one time that I did give you all a test. I don't know who was around. But for the 100th viewer request, or for the 100th stream, I actually did give a test. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I prefer less Shane at times than no Shane due to burnout. Yeah, that's kind of the way that I approach it. You got like 5% of them right. Well, hey, that's fine. Gold stars for everybody here. But tonight we're talking about Iran, and this is actually a very timely topic because if you have sort of been around in the world for the last few months, you'll know that Iran right now is in a pretty bad state. There's a lot of protests going on. The government is having a lot of trouble. They've brought out this Iranian guard group, Revolutionary Guard group. They've got people protesting in the streets, and it's just kind of crazy. Yeah, exactly. Like something's going on in Iran. I didn't know. Holy crap. Just so that we're sure about what we're talking about, let me throw up the modern borders. And Iran is this country here. And it's got a really long history, and we won't go into the entire history of the whole thing of Iran because it would just take way too long. That would be a really interesting, like 9 or 10 episode series, though, like the total history of Iran. I don't even know if I could do it in 10, maybe 15 or 20. Anyway, we're going to start sort of when the modern country really gets kind of established, and then we're going to talk a little bit about where the political issues were and how they came about, And then at the end of the stream, we'll actually talk about the revolution itself. But you don't start talking about the revolution just off the bat, because you really want to know why they're feeling this way. You want to know why the people are acting the way that they do, why the specific things happen the way that they did. So you sort of need to set the stage. And this is always the way that I do things, and you all know this. I try sometimes to put more stuff into a stream than I need to, and I always end up with too much stuff, and then I have to go back in and start cutting. Like, I don't need to say that. That's just me talking too much, and kind of cram it down. But we've actually got quite a bit of information. And Tuna, you would be surprised. I was a really good boy, and I didn't. Actually, I did include World War One. Okay, I can't remember, because I was like, I think I cut all the World War One stuff, and then I remembered, no, I didn't actually cut the World War One stuff. Okay, so let's start kind of at the beginning, I guess, and we're going to start with this guy named Reza Shah. Okay, now who is he? Well, he is this guy. So Reza Shah is he's a military leader. You can see him here in his military regalia. And during World War One, Iran is going to see itself on the receiving end of multiple invasions. First off, England invades Iran. Now, England invades Iran right around the time of the end of the war, and what they're looking at is, we're going to invade Russia from Iran. Now, why would they be doing this in 1915? Well, it's mostly because, again, at this point in 1916, the Russian Revolution kicks up and Russia goes all communist. So England is like, well, we're going to end up having to fight Russia, so we're going to invade Iran. And you already know why they went to Iran. They needed Iran because it had the oil. That's right. It also had access to the Caucasus, which are these mountains that sit right here. And this is a nice invasion route into the southern part of what was at that time Russia. So England is going to come in, set up shop, and they're going to put Reza Shah on the throne. They're going to say, look, we need a ruler that we can trust, and we're going to give you the keys to the kingdom. You have an Iranian X, meaning sweet new dawn. Yeah, not so much. Oh, wow. Interesting. I was unaware. What's up, Cave Geek? How's it going? Everybody go follow Cave Geek, who does really amazing art, but has also recently been building circuit boards and playing some video games. So go give Cave Geek a follow, because he's a good guy. Not much, managed to nap. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I sort of dozed off for about 4 minutes when I was rendering a video earlier today. So yeah, just kind of like did that thing where I realized that I wasn't conscious for a little bit. And you're kind of like, oh, I fell asleep. And when I look at the map, all I can think of, and I ran Safari. Right. And I actually considered that to be the title for the night, but it's not pronounced Iran. It's pronounced Iran. So I couldn't really do that, because I would be playing into the negative pronunciation, and I'm too much of a not good person for that. I can't say Iran. It's not a past tense sentence, right? It's a country. Anyway, so England's going to invade, and then Russia actually counter-invades, because Russia says, oh, well, if you're going to invade Iran for oil, we're totally also going to, invade also. So, yeah, Russia invades. And then again, England's like, oh, crap, we need somebody that's on our side. And they find Reza Shah, who, again, was a sort of well-respected military leader. There was a dynasty that was ruling in Iran at that point, but England's like, forget you guys, and they pushed them all out, and they put Reza Shah on the throne. And this is going to begin what is known as the Iranian Republic. This is going to actually start in, they put Reza Shah sort of on the throne as a king in 1921, but the Iranian Republic, where he actually starts trying to do voting and stuff, takes a little while, and that kicks off in 1925. Was Iran part of the Ottoman Empire? parts of it, but not all of it. The Iranians had a pretty long history of resisting specifically the Ottomans. Now, if we go back in time and we ask, has Iran been part of any Muslim, country? Absolutely. They were conquered after the final battle between them and the Sassanid Persians. This was at a place called words. I'm losing my words. Yarmouk. Nope, that was against the Byzantines. Yazdegerd III was the last king of the Sassanids, and he got beaten up by the Caliph Umar. I can't remember the name of the battle. This is bothering me. This is really like Navahand. Crap, I knew that. Crap. Anyway, that was when the Persians fell to the Rashidun Caliphate, and they were part of the Umayyad Caliphate. And then the Abbasids showed up. The Abbasids are going to kind of wreck the way that the world worked in that area, and from that point forward, there are going to be several different groups that are going to try to start up stuff that is Islamic in Persia. But Persia itself, or Iran, the region that is modern day Iran, had a lot of different versions of Islam. They're going to have a lot of different flavor. There are going to be some Muslim sects in Iran that don't really mind art, specifically pictorial images. There are even pictures of Muhammad from some of these sects. So it's not really the same world even before the Ottomans showed up. The Seljuks do try to get as much of that area as they can, but they're not able to completely take over all of it. But the Ottomans are not also going to be able to take over all of that area. They actually fight quite a bit over what is modern day Iraq. You sense foreshadowing. Well, this actually does have quite a bit of foreshadowing. The reason why Iran today is at such odds with Saudi Arabia is because the version of Muslim faith that took hold mostly in Iran was overwhelmingly Shia. Iran is sort of it's the largest Shia nation on earth by both population and just geographic size. So there's already some conflict there just between Sunni and Shia, and that conflict still is around today, where you have Iran trying to prop up Shia groups and Saudi Arabia trying to prop up Sunni groups. Sectarian conflict, right? It's kind of the way that it goes. You could have made up a name and we wouldn't have known the difference. You all might not have known the difference, but I would have known the difference, and I hold myself to my own standard. So I should have known Navahand. It's in 642. I even know the year that it was in, but I couldn't tell you the friggin' name of the battle. Anyway, that kind of hacks me off, actually. Anyway, Iranian Republic. It starts in 1925. Now, what does Reza Shah do? What's his deal? Well, first thing he decides, Iran needs to westernize. And when he says westernize, what he means is we need to sort of de-Islamify. And he went a long way to try to push Western development in Iran. Now, what did this look like? It took several different versions. There was the industrial push. So he wants railroads and power and telephones, and he wants all sorts of new industrial capacity. We need to build factories. We need to build bigger docks. We need to dredge out our ports so that we can get big ships in. We need to do all this just really, really rapid change. Shiny stuff, exactly. We want the cool things. But this also brings in, and is purposely brought in, Western culture. So he wants Western food. He wants restaurants. I'm Spartacus. Tuna. Tuna, you have shown your true Numenorian spirit. Once again, thank you so much for gifting a sub to Brittany. 41 gift subs. That's friggin' amazing, my friend, and thank you so much for that. You're a good dude. So, he wants Western food. He wants movie theaters because he wants people in Iran to go watch all the movies. He wants Western music. He wants to bring in jazz, and he wants to bring in orchestras from around the world to play Beethoven and symphonies from Tchaikovsky and all this stuff, right? He is going to push really hard to get people to dress more Western. You reward good arguments with shade. True Numenorian spirit, so greedy and irreverent. No, I said true Numenorians. Because the true Numenorians stayed faithful, and they're the ones that saved all of the stuff and made it to Middle-earth. Not the ones who defied the ban of the Valar and gained so much greed and got on a big ship and ended up, challenging the gods themselves and then getting squashed. This won't have any repercussions. I can feel it. Moose, just hold on. One of the things that he actually did was ban this particular item of clothing. This is called a chador, which is not a burqa, but it is a very conservative formal dress, right? It is just this sort of overall cloak that hides everything but the face. And he put a ban on this, and he actually encouraged women to not even wear the hijab. Would see people in public and ask them, like, why are you wearing the hijab? You should take the hijab off. We're a modern country. We are participating in the global politics, and we're not going to hold on to outdated imperialist dogma that came from centuries of the past. He's going to push for women's rights. He's going to get women the right to vote in Iran. He's going to push for civil rights, where especially things like he tries to modernize divorce. So under very, very strict Islamic law, if a Muslim man looks at his wife and says, I divorce you 3 times, that's divorce. But he's like, no, it needs to be legal and go through the court system and like have actual procedures where you can't just cut somebody off because you've had a bad afternoon, right? Like Beetlejuice, right? So he's also going to make some, there's a little bit of controversy here about whether or not he actually meant it. But he's even going to try to start opening up some freedom of religion rights. Specifically, he is going to start talking about letting Jewish people openly worship, which is something that had not happened in Iran for a long time. There's a Zoroastrian minority. There's a Christian minority in Iran. And he starts talking about things like, well, maybe we should allow these people freedom of religion. So he was kind of on the, big, let's westernize really, really rapidly push. There's a lot of pushback against this. Was he against no-fault divorce? No, he wasn't against no-fault divorce, but what he was against was sort of the threat at any point that without any repercussion of a man could just divorce his wife. And that puts an enormous amount of social power in the hands of the husband when the woman knows that at any time, for any reason, a husband should just go, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and that's the end of it. And there's no recourse for that woman to, take possessions or have any sort of monetary support from the family or get custody of the children or anything like that. So that's what he was against. Men need repercussions. Well, he saw a lot of things as legal issues where previously in Iran, those things had been looked at as religious issues. Spoilers, he wasn't successful. Well, he actually was to begin with. From 1925 to 1933, Iran did a lot of stuff. Now, there are things to criticize here. Anytime that there's rapid social change like this, you know that there's going to be some shady stuff going on. And there was. He's super pro-secularism. He wanted to be a Western country that had a separation between church and state. There was a lot of forced participation. Like when he banned the chador, you couldn't wear it even if you wanted to, right? So this isn't like if you want to, you don't have to. Now it's just like you just can't wear this anymore. Things like putting people in jail. He was not a big fan of the critics. And if you caused too much trouble, you might end up in jail. You might end up getting jumped and beaten up. And to be fair, a lot of these big reforms that he sort of pushed through didn't necessarily functionally change the way that many people's lives in Iran worked. Now, if you lived in the city, you had substantially big chunks of stuff, right? You are going to witness a lot of change really, really fast. If you lived in rural parts of Iran, which was a substantial portion of the population, a lot of these changes didn't necessarily meet the same level of success. Most notably in areas where the population was incredibly religious, which is a large portion of Iran, right? There are a lot of people in Iran that were very, very religious and did not like this new push, what they considered away from Islam. And they, one of the biggest criticisms of Reza Shah that a lot of people leveled against him was that he was actually anti-Islam, which he was a Muslim, but he's like, no, we got to do things differently, right? You cannot wear anything you want, and you have to stay married is very modern. As opposed to women have literally no rights, period, they're property of their husband. That's a substantial step forward, right? The Critic was a great show. I saw a lot of that, but I can't say that I saw all of that. I liked it for what it was. Comedy Central used to have some pretty good animated stuff, and then they just sort of turned into running reruns of shows and stopped making good stuff. Right around the time that like Chappelle Show went off the air, I think they kind of ran out of ideas. It wasn't all shiny, happy rainbow stuff, but a lot of people's lives changed dramatically under Reza Shah. Now, here comes World War II. World War II happens. Woo! And Britain invades again. Because guess what they need again? Oil. And Russia invades again. Guess what they need? Oil. So, what do you do with Reza Shah? Well, he didn't like Britain and Russia showing back up. He's like, look, you all put me on the throne, and I don't like being told what to do in my own country. And then Britain was like, well, here's the deal, bud. We put you on the throne, and guess what we can do? We can take you off the throne. And they do. In 1941, during the war, Reza Shah is pushed off the throne. But Britain is, I guess, nice in the good old-fashioned Britain way, and they put his son on the throne. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Now, he's going to take the title Shah, and it should be right here, if we put it in the list. Pahlavi is the name of the dynasty, or his family name. Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. We'll just call him the Shah, because that's what he was. The Critic was on Fox originally. They even had a Simpsons crossover episode. I did not know that, because I guess I completely missed the original run of that and only saw it on Comedy Central. So, shows you how much I paid attention. So here's Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, sitting on his throne, wearing his big hat with all of his fancy medals, and a big old scepter. What's up, Lumpy? Everybody go follow Lumpy for all of your delightful Minecraft and chatting needs. So this is the guy that the British put on the throne. Look, you're the king. Now, he was younger at the time. This is him when he was a little bit older in life. But he was supposed to be more malleable, right? Like, he was not as stuck in his ways. What throne is called the Peacock Throne? That's a great question. India is the peacock throne, I believe. Chrysanthemum throne is Japan. That throne is called the peacock throne. Oh, so that throne, no, that specific one in Iran, not the. What's the India one then? Huh. Thank you, Wild Food, for giving me that. That throne is called the peacock throne. Okay, I guess I can see it. We can see it, like, yeah, right here. So there's a little peacock. Peacock, by the way, is a symbol for immortality. Old imperial, classical age symbol of one of the words that I'm saying that I can't remember, of immortality. You see that a lot in Christian imagery. Peacock used to be eaten at dinners, right? Walter, thank you for that. And welcome in. I see that you're a first-time chatter. Welcome into the adventure. Hope you're having a good one. Please feel free to participate at whatever level you're interested. Life keeps being a little tornado, but it's all under control. That's good. That's good. He looks assassinatable. They never... Well, I mean, they tried to twice. At one point, they get fairly close. He gets shot, and the bullet... I think that's in 49. He gets shot, and the bullet, like, goes across his cheek. So, like, it's pretty close. But he doesn't actually ever get assassinated. He dies later on in the 70s from cancer. Spoilers. The boss, the king, the Shah. How about a little more baklava? Baklava, not necessarily completely an Iranian thing. It's a little bit more of a Mediterranean thing. They might have baklava in Iran. I don't actually know the answer to that. It's possible. I'm sure that if you looked around, you could probably find baklava in Iran, but I don't know if that's actually their thing. It's a little bit more of a Mediterranean thing. I've had that in Jordan. I've had it in Turkey. I've had it in Greece. Man, I love baklava. It's so friggin' good. What title would you take in the post-apocalyptic wasteland? King Shane? No, you don't take titles in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. If you take titles in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, that implies that somebody else can kill you and take that title. So you don't take a title. That's one of the traps, right? I'm smarter than that. I'm going to survive the post-apocalyptic wasteland. Tsar, Kaiser... Turkey and Greece will wage a war on who owns baklava. They do have different recipes for it. They use different additives. Sometimes, like, you get a lot of pistachios in certain versions of baklava. You get... I've had it with peanuts before. So it's not as good with peanut. I actually kind of do prefer the pistachios. Sometimes with cashews, it's not so bad. Shane the boring nobody, right? Okay, so we put Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi in power. All right, now what are we going to do with him? Well, we're just going to kind of leave him there. And when he gets in power, things are going to sort of try to continue. He picks up not too far from where his dad left off. And he's very... very big on the whole, westernize, industrialize. We're going to bring in stuff. We're going to make Iran a modern power. But that is going to start causing some issue. Most notably with the elected officials. So there is a version of parliament in Iran, and they do have elections. And there are people that can sort of... offer opinions that might not line up with the Shah. And things are going to go okay-ish for most of the 40s. But by the end of the 40s, and especially at the beginning of the 50s, there's going to be a particular political party called the National Front. And this political party is a little bit... more a fan of democracy. They don't necessarily want the Shah to have unlimited unilateral control. And he really didn't. There were things that the parliament did, and there are things that the Shah did, but the National Front Party was sort of interested in kind of cutting down the amount of power that the Shah had. And of course, he wasn't happy with this. He didn't like the idea of giving up more power. And one of the things that the National Front was especially sort of outspoken against was this idea that Iran was basically being run by outside powers. They don't like this idea at all. And they don't like the fact that Britain was so involved. They don't like the fact that so much of the stuff that was happening was either Britain or France or, to a certain extent, a little bit Russia, especially up in the northwest parts of Iran. There was some Russian influence still kind of going on in that area. And they wanted Iran to be basically a sovereign power. They wanted to kick out all the foreigners, or at least renegotiate a lot of the deals that the foreigners had made. They wanted to make, Iran a national partner. Like they weren't necessarily against the reforms that the Shah was making, but they wanted a little bit more involvement. They wanted to make a little bit more of a democracy, right? So this is going to bring a particular individual into kind of the forefront. And his name is Mohammad Mossadegh. And he is this gentleman. Now, Mossadegh is going to get elected as prime minister in 1951. And this is because, and he had been elected a member of the parliament, and he was part of the National Front Party. They want to tell Russia and Britain and France to just shove off. They want Iran to stand on its own power and do its own thing. Now, Mossadegh and the Shah do not see eye to eye. They're not friends. Now, there's enough deference kind of going on. Like there's a really famous picture of Mossadegh bowing to the Shah when Mossadegh took the power of prime minister. So I recognize that you're the titular regent of the country. I'm doing the obeisance that I need to, but that doesn't mean I'm a gigantic fan of everything that you're going to do. And this is going to kind of start some issues. Now, Mossadegh is, again, he's not a fan of these big European powers playing around inside of Iran. And especially, there's this one particular situation with the Anglo-Iranian Oil Corporation. So this is referred to as the AIOC, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Corporation, which was exactly what it sounds like. This big oil corporation that was partially owned by the British and partially owned by the Iranians. But in reality, what happened here was the British, while they were in occupation of Iran, effectively forced Iran into some really lopsided deals. Britain basically demanded a unilateral power to export Iran's oil. So if Iran wanted to sell oil on the international market, they had to sell it to Britain. And that was pretty much the only people that they could. And Mossadegh doesn't like this. They also had to sell it to Britain at sort of whatever price Britain would pay. So Britain was getting a deal that they had cornered the Iranian oil market. And Mossadegh goes, we need to renegotiate this deal, right? If we are a sovereign nation, and if we are going to be a participator in this larger Western culture, that's cool, but we need to do it on our terms, and we need to be treated as equals. We don't need to be looked down on. We don't need to be negotiated from a position of power to a position of weakness. So he goes to the British and the heads of the AIOC, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Corporation, and he goes, we need to renegotiate this deal. You guys are basically stealing from us, and we're not getting the benefit from this oil, which is ours because it's in our ground. And of course, the British response is, it belongs in our museum. I'm sorry, no, you can't have it. So the British aren't really interested in renegotiating this deal. And this is going to start something that goes over pretty poorly in the British sense. This is what's called the Abadan crisis. So the AIOC was based in a city called Abadan. And Mohammad Mossadegh took steps in Parliament and introduced legislation that nationalized the AIOC. So basically, the state of Iran went into Abadan and said, "We now own all of this. So we own this. Like, the British no longer own this. Iran owns this." And oh boy, do the British flip their lid about this stuff. They immediately launch international lawsuits. They're trying to they're appealing to the Shah, who is against this move to begin with. They are going to institute a national ban on buying Iranian oil. And they're going to try to boycott all goods that are coming out of Iran. And they try to convince everybody else in the world to do this too. And it does have some impact. This is going to eventually start hurting Iranian economy. But man, this is a big issue. And Mossadegh goes, "We gave you the opportunity to negotiate like equals. You refused to give it to us. We're going to be a national country. We're going to have sovereignty. And, you can't tell us otherwise because we are a country." The British are the seagulls from Finding Nemo. Maybe. I don't know if the metaphor holds completely, but there's enough of it there to go for it. Mostly because the seagulls end up being fairly incompetent overall, but the British were highly competent in a lot of their stuff. Ruthless, racist, horrible, but competent. So this is going to be a big sticking point. And this again happens in 1951. The Shah immediately tries to get the parliament to back out of this. He goes to Mossadegh and he basically tells him, "You've got to get rid of this stuff." And Mossadegh's like, "No, we're not going to do that." And the situation just keeps like boiling, and it's almost like a pressure cooker. And people inside of Iran actually really liked this. There was a lot of support for this, including some people that the Shah didn't really expect to be on Mossadegh's side, because there were a lot of people that saw kicking out Britain as a way of getting rid of the Shah. Right, so there were a lot of people that were sort of anti-Shah that saw an Iranian standing up for Iranian businesses and people and national sovereignty as a good thing. And they go, "Oh, look, if we can get rid of the Shah, maybe Mossadegh would be more conservative and more Islamic." So a lot of people that were not necessarily super pro-democracy still supported this move because they got rid of the British, and it might end up getting rid of the Shah, who they hated. So there's like this weird kind of coalition of don't really like you. But anyway, this gets pretty far out of hand. And there's some talk about the Shah maybe forcing Mossadegh out of power and trying to maybe force more elections. And what ends up happening is the people start calling for the Shah's assassination. And this freaks him the crap out. He's like, "Wait, what now?" And they're like, "We would rather have democracy and see you dead than have, you kick Mossadegh out." And again, there had been an assassination attempt against his life in 1949. So this is just like a few years later. And he was like in the hospital for a while recovering from this. He got shot in the face, right? So he was kind of freaked out. And when they started calling for his head, he didn't think they were playing. And what kind of makes this is such a bad tactical move. The Shah decides to leave the country because things are getting kind of hot. And he runs to Britain. And this is really tactically a blunder here. He runs to England. And that just... it kind of solidified everything that people were saying about him. Like, he's only there because he's being propped up by the British, and he's much more in favor of bringing in British companies to do stuff in Iran than being pro-Iranian. And it's such bad optics, right? Like, he could have gone just about anywhere else. Like, if he had just gone to Iraq, that would have been so much better. Or if he had gone to even like, Lebanon or Saudi Arabia or somewhere else, not, or even if he wanted to go somewhere in Europe, why didn't he go to like Spain or something, right? But no, he went to Britain, like the people that were kind of at the center of this big mess. Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden. There we go, right? That's so far away. I know the reference was already rejected. He ran so far away, right? So what are we going to do now if we are Britain? We've lost our oil company. The leader that we put on the throne of Iran has fled the country out of fear of his life, and it looks like the government there is actually interested in running the country themselves, which we don't like because we're England and we don't like it when other countries run their government. We like it when we run their government, right? What's up, Raveland? How's it going? So the British reach out to the CIA and America. What's up, KP? I see you sneaking in there. And they go, hey, America, we need your help. And America's like, go on. And they're like, we've got a guy over in Iran, and he's causing us a lot of trouble. And we'd kind of like you to help us get rid of him. And America's like, when you say get rid of, what do you mean get rid of? And Britain's like, what do you think we mean? And clearly they meant assassinate this guy. But America's not immediately super pro assassinate Mossadegh, because to them, just looking at this from their point of view, I mean, he was democratically elected. Not that had ever stopped America before, but he wasn't super pro Russia. He was just anti-British. And America's like, I mean, Britain, you're okay, but like, they're not going to go communist, so we're not necessarily super worried about, this whole situation in the long run, because domino theory is not really at play here, right? If Iran's not going to fall to the communists. But the British are pretty insistent, and they, anti-British, yeah, we get that, right? The British are really, really insistent, and they start trying to like manufacture evidence, and what really kind of... Are you not entertained? What's up, Allie? And Allie's partners in crime. Hello, everybody. My name is Shane. I teach history and sociology for a living at college, and on stream, we hang out and talk about history stuff, but we don't do it in the boring way. Well, or at least I don't think we do it in a boring way. I think we try to have fun about it, and we make fun of history. We make fun out of history. Allie is an amazing artist and a fellow soul. I have a younger sister, but if I were ever in the market to get another younger sister, I would absolutely put Allie like right at the top of the list. Weirdly, your OBS or Twitch did not confirm the raid. Well, that's cool. That's kind of what OBS does, though, right? Let me say hey to everybody on the way in. So, hey, Allie. Snowlock, what's up? Welcome, welcome. Allie be raiding indeed. Raveland says hi. Raveland wants to see the puppy. Give me just a second. Marvel Captain America. Fun fact, United States is still under British command because of bloodlines. Cousin, like... That means they're also under German command, and that means they're also under Habsburg command. If we want to go far enough back in, royalty bloodlines and stuff like that, there we go. All right, let me call the puppy. Here she comes. Or at least I think she's coming this way. She might be stopping to try to find a toy. She is coming this way, though. I hear her toenails. Kaylee! I think she's looking for a toy. So, while we're waiting for the puppy. Um, the lost my train of thought. Throw a toy in your room. I needed like a squeaker. I actually do need a squeaker in here. That would be a great way to summon the puppy. Where is she? Let me call her again. My wife says the dog is running around the house looking for a toy. Come and see me. Oh, yes, we have the not toy. Well, come here. Okay, now I'm going to have to take the toy from you and get you up here on the stream. And I know you don't like that, but that's the way it's got to go. Come here. We've got another one. Noble Crumpet, what up? We're playing with the toy. Hey, come up here and see me. Come here. Oh, yes, there's the puppy. Oh, the puppy. Let me turn the camera this way a little bit so you can see the puppy. Hello. You want to play with the toy? Arr. 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 Oh, you can't see her. She's over here. Arr. Arr. Do tug of war? You got it? Arr. No, you don't got it. You got an itch? What are you doing? You want to catch it? No, you don't want to catch it. I'm Spartacus. You are a big baby. I'm Spartacus. Now she's just sitting right here because she wants me to scratch her back. Sci-fi. Thank you so much for being Spartacus. It is much appreciated. We're checking out the puppy. I need to give myself some more camera. I've got the cable for my camera tied pretty tight down. I need to give myself some more slack so that I can get a little bit more range, so we can get a little bit more puppy action going on there. She doesn't actually have fleas. She's never really had an issue with fleas. We keep her fairly well covered in that area. I think I missed some stuff, though. Noble Crumpet, thank you so much for that raid. Holy crap, I forgot about that whole thing. That happened right as the puppy was coming. Go follow Noble Crumpet for all of your D&D preparation and D&D streaming needs. Noble Crumpet actually runs a campaign on stream that includes our last raider, Allie Briggs. Noble Crumpet also history fan, so get on there and pepper them with questions about stuff. Welcome, Noble Crumpet. I hope that you're doing well. For those of you that are coming in with Noble Crumpet stream, hello, my name is Shane. I teach history and sociology for a living at college, and we talk about history stuff and look at my dog because everybody loves the dog. And thank you again, Sci-Fi, for the subscription, and I hope that you're having a lovely early to mid morning in your world. Meowdy, there's a good one. Eye of the Night, what's up? How's things? Things are going pretty well. I'm tired, and I've had 2 very, very busy days in a row. I have sort of summoned all of my ki in a good Dragon Ball Z reference to power through the stream in a way that's super positive and upbeat. I will almost certainly get super hungry after stream and want to eat cereal and then want to immediately crash and go to sleep. But for stream time, it's go time. I feel that. I've been wiped for the past couple of days. Tomorrow you have to work. Obligatory nice for viewer request number. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of ironic because the current government in Iran would probably not be very fond of that if we talked about that in public. Noble Crumpet just gave up so he can go to sleep. Hey, I appreciate that as well. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, and sleeping is not a loss because you get to sleep, right? You were prepping for. I was listening to you in the background of Allie's stream, and then I realized, like, oh crap, you're doing a really good job of explaining it, but it's also I haven't played that yet, so I'm getting like all of the data. And like, if we ever play this with my group, I'm gonna know everything. So then I was like, ugh. So I had to kind of like, I put Ali's stream on mute so that I could still watch the art, but then I wasn't getting like all of the data in the background for Rime of the Frost Maiden. Sleeping is exactly like turning yourself off and back on again. A lot of okay, that's good. So maybe I'm not as ahead of the curve as I think that I am. But I really do appreciate that kind of stuff. It takes a lot to run a campaign, and it's good to know that other DMs do as much stuff like that as I do when I run a campaign. I tend to get really, really involved in things and probably over prepare. I've created whole scenarios before that don't happen because people just won't go the angle that I think they're going to go, right? Last two sessions are actually some of the better ones, and no spoilers at all since you had to build all of your... Yeah. You know, it's like you build this whole thing like, oh man, I know this party. They're totally going to pick this option. And so I'm going to like lay out all these breadcrumbs and I'm going to get them to this point. There's going to be this great payoff. And then they suddenly decide to get all altruistic on me. And they're like, you know what? We're not going to be scandalous murder hobos on this scenario. We should probably play this one by the rules. And I'm like... Yeah, you know, like I'll copy and paste stuff. Like if I get some good content, I'll save all that junk in a Word document, and I'll move that around and just make it happen again later on. Revel's End is a prison complex in the north that has almost no story. So I ran. There we go. Hey, yeah, exactly, dude. I love John Carpenter's The Thing because like that's one of my favorite horror movies ever. Hey, you Moose, how's it going? Good to see you. Happens to every DM. It does. Sometimes you think you know your party, and then they sociology you, right? They suddenly grow consciences or something. Like, anyway. So tonight we're talking about the Iranian Revolution, and we are into the 50s, and we're at this particular period of time called the Abadan Crisis. Basically, what's happened here is that Mohammad Mossadegh, who's the prime minister, has nationalized an oil company that was owned mostly by the British, and the king of Iran, whose title is actually Shah, his name is Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He has run off to Britain, and now Britain is trying to kill Mohammad Mossadegh because, well, I mean, they want their oil company back, right? And they've reached out to everybody's favorite international overthrowers / killers, the CIA. And America does eventually get convinced that, you know, maybe Mossadegh is not necessarily the guy that we want in charge, so they send this guy over. And you're like, okay, that guy looks like the least damaging and the least dangerous person ever. What is he going to do? You know, collate you to death? Well, that guy just happens to be Kermit Roosevelt Jr. And if you're like, is he related to that Roosevelt? He is Teddy Roosevelt's grandson. So he's got a little bit more fire in him than the Oxford button-down khakis that you might think that he wears every day. No one expects the nerd assassin. This is kind of true. That's kind of... Is he related to that frog guy? By the way, Kermit used to be a very, very common male first name. Kermit was not associated with the frog because it was a nobody name. They picked Kermit because it was a popular name. Kermit was super popular prior. Like, his dad's name was Kermit. This is Kermit Roosevelt Jr., right? Is this the World War II general? Yeah, same guy. Well, yes. His dad was in the war as well. His dad was in the military as well. So, the same guy, though. Can't wait for the Miss Piggy to make a comeback as a name. Anyway, Kermit Roosevelt goes over to Iran and he decides, yeah, we kind of need to get rid of Mossadegh. And how are we going to do that? Well, let's see. We're going to screw around with all of the politics and we're going to start fomenting rebellion and we're going to get a lot of people angry at him. So how do you do that? Well, you start doing a whole bunch of propaganda junk and they start publishing flyers and they're pushing people around and they basically organize and orchestrate this entire situation where they have hired these thugs. And I do mean actual thugs. Like they went to, especially the big cities, and they would hire criminals, like known criminals in the area, to organize these sort of like fake spontaneous riots where they would get a whole bunch of like the goon squad rounded up, and they would go to a certain area where there was protesting, and they would just start a riot and cause a whole bunch of trouble. And what this, of course, is going to do is force Mossadegh to respond with force. And the thing about Iran at that time is it didn't necessarily have what we would consider a very well-developed police force. And eventually this is going to mean that Mohammad Mossadegh is going to have to resort to using the military, which of course looks really, really bad when you've got like military trying to put down riots. But I mean, again, the riots were artificially created. They weren't people just getting mad at Mossadegh and going rioting. It was, we're going to go hire the bad guys, and we're going to get the bad guys to start riots, and everybody else is going to kind of follow suit, right? I've been told they did something similar in Hong Kong fairly recently. That would be interesting, Tad. I'm not sure if I haven't read anything about that personally, and I don't know about it, so I don't necessarily want to agree. But that definitely sounds like something that would happen. If you're interested in model building like I am, as you can tell here, you should go follow my buddy Tad, because he's a model builder here on Twitch, and he's a good dude. And likes really good music and has opinions that I tend to agree with. So it's good confirmation bias, right? Fake spontaneous riots, it's still a thing, right? I mean, it's still a riot and people are still getting shot and killed. So I'm not trying to diminish the fact that people were getting beaten and jailed and killed in this mess, because it really was a big issue. So what's going to end up happening is that part of the military is going to actually end up siding against Mossadegh, and they're going to end up getting so riled up in this that at one point they shoot his house with a tank, right? They sort of liberate a tank from the military, and they drive it down the middle of the street, and they shoot the prime minister's mansion with the tank. Now, at that point, Mossadegh goes, you know what? You can have this crap. I quit. And honestly, I don't really blame him. When they're going to assassinate you by tank, like, they're not playing around anymore. And so they go, okay, well, if you're going to resign, the Shah's going to come back. And he's like, I quit. I quit. I don't care anymore. So America screws around with the internal politics of a democratic country, but America freaks out when Russia's played around with American politics. Well, yeah, because we can do it to other countries, but other countries aren't supposed to do it to us. There's the double standard that you're looking for, Tankard. Right. Do unto others not as we do unto them. You might appreciate a class that I teach. When I teach world history, there's an entire lecture in the Cold War that's called American Foreign Interventionism. And it's basically an entire class of, so first we overthrew Syria, and then we overthrew all of these other countries like, Guatemala, and we overthrew Chile, and we overthrew all these other countries, and we got rid of this democratically elected leader, and we gave information to this guy to get this guy shot, and you'd love to be a student in one of my classes. I appreciate that. That's very high praise, and I take that to heart. I appreciate that a lot. So there's like a whole 50-minute discussion of like, here's all the countries that America has thrown over, or overthrown. And like, this country got overthrown because of the United Fruit Company losing tax money for bananas and Congress getting involved. And, it's messy. No homework, exactly. I do sometimes give homework, but it's always the same homework assignment. And we might actually go ahead and assign some homework for tonight. So your homework for tonight, you don't have to do it by next stream, but it would be good if you did. Always the same homework. Do something nice for somebody and don't tell them that you did it. Just do it for the sake of doing something nice for somebody else. You don't even have to know who it is. You just do something nice for somebody and don't tell them that you did it. because you're not doing it for the praise that you get out of it. You're doing it for the fact that you're helping somebody else out. So that's your homework for tonight. I skip the stream when we have to hand stuff in. And Sci-Fi's like, I'm already taking way too much school. I drank a milkshake for my dad. He loved them, but it's not good for him, so I took that bullet. But if nobody knows about it, you won't get XP, right? I don't believe in the combat-based XP system. I believe that people level up when the time is right. Being nice to people goes against your beliefs. This is persecution. Well, okay, I mean, you can ask for a religious exemption, and I can give you one of those. Treasure-based XP, still the milkshakes. There we go, right? I really want a milkshake now. I'm not going to lie. I could totally go for a milkshake. I don't know if you all live around my area, or if you are living in an area that has one of these, but there's a particular restaurant called Cookout. And it's basically, I define Cookout as redneck Taco Bell. Because you go to Taco Bell to get a whole bunch of cheap Mexican food, right? And it's not even really Mexican food. It's like Tex-Mex food. But you go to Cookout to get really cheap redneck food. Like you can go get corn dogs and chicken strips and, chicken. It's basically like an all-you-can-eat, anything that you can cook on a grill, like chili dogs and stuff like that, right? And it's all super cheap. But they have a milkshake there that's a cappuccino milkshake. And man, that thing is friggin' amazing. And I really want one of those right now. If you ever go to a Cookout, try the cappuccino milkshake. It's worth the couple of dollars that you can pay to get one. All right. So, refried chitlins. They don't offer chitlins. That's actually something that I would be really interested to see if any fast food restaurant would offer. I would suspect that they wouldn't want to cook those because of the smell that would permeate the entire building. Cooking chitlins is a stinky process. Chitlins is pig intestines. It's actually spelled chitterlings, but we in the South pronounce it as chitlins. So it's pig intestines, and they're not my favorite. I've had them. There are typically two different ways that you go about eating them. One of them is boiling them until they're soft enough to eat. That's not my favorite way. It also makes things stink so much more when you boil them, because you have to boil them for like 4 or 5 hours and they stink. And they get fried. Yeah, fried chitlins is a thing. Now, the thing about fried chitlins is that you don't boil them for as long, so they are a little bit more chewy. So it's not like a pork rind. It's more like, I don't know if you've ever had like octopus or squid sashimi. If you've ever had fried squid and they cut the squid too thick and it's a little bit too chewy, that's kind of what a chitlin is the consistency of, but it tastes very much like intestine. So if you, and I don't, I'm sure that at some point Allie's had intestine, just because, again, like we've had this interesting overlap of culinary experience. It's not the worst food ever, but if you sold them at a fast food restaurant, it would stink the whole thing. David, you are officially the 4th person to make that joke on the stream tonight. So, hey, David, good to see you. If you're not already following David Peterson, you got to. He's a good friend and a good guy and does amazing art on stream, and you'll want to go check it out because it's good stuff. I've got crap tons of his stuff on my walls in my house. If you come over, I'll show it all to you. You could say there's a whole flock of seagulls in here. Yeah. It is a good song. It's not a bad song. But like the song itself, it gets played a lot in the stream here. Anyway, most of the day gone. The Shah, he's back. The Shah is back. And what does he do? Well, he gets back in power. Woo! and he decides that he's going to kind of kick the westernization into overdrive. And he starts something that he calls the White Revolution. Now, what is this? Now, this isn't like we're just going to bring a whole bunch of white people in. But this is a bit of a shift in the way that he wants people to think about Iran. Not people just outside of Iran thinking about Iran, but also people inside of Iran. He wants to sort of change the way that they're perceiving the concept of Iran. And like one of the things that he does that is kind of big during this period of time is he resets the calendar. So for a long time, Iran had sort of recognized, the international calendar that kind of everybody uses, but they'd also recognized the Islamic calendar. So Islam has its own calendar that's based on events in the life of Muhammad. But the Shah sort of wants people to think about Iran as this kind of like global power. And there's an event during his reign that's like the 2,000 year anniversary of Persia, specifically Cyrus the Great. And so he kind of starts leaning into this whole, like, Persia is this, that Iran as the current state is this outgrowth of Persia. And he reorders the years and he creates this thing that he called the imperial year. And it goes back to Cyrus the Great instead of Muhammad. And as you can tell, just by that basic fact alone, the very religious people inside of Iran hate that. They hate that so much. Also, during this time of the White Revolution, we're going to see the rise of a group called the Savak. This was his personal secret police. Just thinking it over, though, I would love to be a student in one of your classes. You might not want me there. I would ask too many questions, never give you a chance to complete the material. That's fine. I live off of questions, and I would rather answer questions that would give people information that they want to know than sort of drone on about stuff that nobody gives a crap about. I actively try to encourage discussion in my classes. It takes me usually 3 or 4 weeks to get people to start talking. And I have to tell them every class, like, you have been told your entire career to sit quietly and pay attention to the teacher. I don't want you to do that in here. I want you to ask questions. I want you to participate. I want you to say stuff. I want you to make goofy comments, because this is a class where we can do that and we can talk about stuff and we can have a social conversation. Especially when I teach sociology, if you don't talk in there, that class gets real dry. Let's talk about society and how social forces work, and we're going to just talk about it in academic terms, and we're not going to talk with each other and have any sort of social interaction. It can get really dry. So I ended up having to tell stories about myself and like try to interject jokes and stuff like that. One of the reasons I'm so tired today is that I sort of had to be the fuel for both of my classes today. So I taught for about 3 hours and had to really try to motivate them. And really put a lot of effort into try to bring them around to talking. And that takes a lot out of you. They go on and on about social constructs. Sociologists never shut up. I have been accused of talking a lot. As an example, though, of kind of what I'm talking about, this is the seal of the Savak. So this is kind of like their crest. And you can tell just right off the bat, dude is leaning real hard into the Persia thing. Right, we've got a friggin' sphinx here, and dude's dressed up like a Persian king, right, with the big old honking crown. This doesn't look very Islamic. Again, it's an image, right? First off, that's not necessarily super Islamic. It's also a mythological image that doesn't have anything to do with Islam. So that's kind of another issue, right? It's a sphinx, not a seal. Thanks, Boost. Appreciate that. So he has to implement a secret police. Now, there's no such thing as a good secret police, right? Rulers don't make secret police units to do nice things, right? It's not like Secret Santa. Secret police units are not good. There's never been one in history that I can think of that has been a benevolent organization, right? And the Savak are not a benevolent organization. The people that are going to resist a lot of this stuff are going to be disappeared, or they're going to be beaten or thrown in jail, or they're going to have threats leveled against them. The good ones you don't know about because they're secret. That's fair, perhaps, but I don't know, maybe. The difference between the second go-around is that when the Shah comes back and he starts this white revolution, he doesn't necessarily cozy up to Britain. He cozies up to the U.S. because he knows that the U.S. was instrumental in getting rid of Mossadegh and bringing him back in charge. So this is going to be a bit of a shift. Now, not everybody sees that as a shift, especially the people in the National Front see this as trading one foreign imperial power for another. Right? You just got rid of Britain and you brought in the U.S. Right? First rule of secret police: we don't talk about secret police. Exactly. But everybody goes and talks about them anyway. So, a good first-hand account of the Iran Revolution is the aftermath of Persepolis. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. This is something that I talked about with Lumpy on his stream last night, and he said that I should definitely mention that, and I will. And I'll talk about that specifically a little bit when we actually get into the revolution, which is coming up here in just a bit. So, what else is in this white revolution plan? What has he got going? Well, he tries to eliminate, this is again the Shah, he tries to eliminate all of the old Islamic nobility. And so there were still people that were, heads of these families that had been fabulously wealthy for, 1,000 years. And he wants to get rid of them. How is he going to do that? Land reform. He basically buys up all of the land from a bunch of people and resells it to people for cheap. And this really cuts the power of a lot of these nobles. He's going to push for public education. And specifically here, not religious education in a madrasa, but a public education with things like, what we would consider educational curricula today, math and English and history and science and stuff like, well, not English, but, language. He's going to push for a broad education, not just a narrow one within the confines of religious history and, how to read the Quran and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, he's actually trying to implement something like a Western school system here. He's also going to nationalize a lot of the utilities, especially the water. Iran has a lot of places that are, as we can see just here on the map, it's pretty dry over here in a lot of these places. So nationalizing the water system is going to mean that he counts that as a utility, which means that companies and individuals are no longer going to be able to profit off of the water. Water profiteering in Iran had been a problem for a long time. So he's going to cut down on some of that stuff. He's going to expand voting rights again. And he's going to allow McDonald's to open up restaurants. Yeah, he actually did. Right? He's going to allow women to run for office. And he allows people that are not Muslim to run for office. So if you're a Christian or a Zoroastrian or a Jewish person in Iran, you can run for office. And again, all of this stuff is not going over well with a significant portion of Iran. The people that are very conservative Iranian Muslims are not liking a lot of this stuff. The people that are living in the cities are predominantly on board with it, but a lot of people in the rural areas, again, they're not getting a lot of the benefit for this. The land reforms, for example, they don't necessarily eliminate a lot of the poverty that he said they were going to eliminate. What ended up happening was he crashed the nobility and created a sort of super powerful quasi-noble middle class, kind of like a landlord class almost, because a lot of the plots that were given to the poorest of people were too small to make a living off of, right? So if you get 2 acres, you're not really going to be able to make a living off of that. So a lot of the smaller people ended up having to sell their land to kind of like middle level people and then work as tenant farmers on that land, which is kind of putting them right back in the same position that they were in, right? So instead of being under the control of a really super powerful noble, now they're under control of a middle manager, landlord kind of person, right? So not all of these reforms are hitting on all of the cylinders. Also, it's super corrupt. This is not a very streamlined bureaucratic process. This is, I pat your back and you scratch my back and you hand off the money in the secret handshake kind of thing, and you get my cousin a job that was going to pay them $20,000. It's just super corrupt. But the United States doesn't really care about that, and the Shah doesn't really care about that because he's in power, and as long as the Shah is in power, the communists aren't going to take over Iran. So the United States doesn't really care. Their goal is stop communism. Iran's not going to end up in communist hands. They don't really care what happens over there. Also, in the urban areas, one of the things that's going to happen is because of this growth in industry, a lot of people are going to move to the cities to try to find jobs in factories and stuff like that. Also, as people lose their land in rural areas, they're going to go to the cities looking for jobs. And this is going to create a growth of inequality inside the cities, where there's going to be an upper class and a middle class, and then a really big gap, and then lower class. And these lower class people living in the cities are frequently going to be either homeless or semi-homeless, or kind of living in like shanty towns and things like that inside of the cities. So this isn't solving all of the problems. And a lot of people criticize the Shah as just doing a lot of window dressing, right? He's doing a lot of stuff that makes it look like he's changing things, and it's helping some people, but the people that it's helping are his friends. And especially him and his family. They were getting fabulously wealthy, right? Why would he allow corruption? He must know about the long-term coincidences, not smart. Well, the people that were getting all of the nudges and helps, the people that were supporting him, right? So as long as he was in charge and his party was running stuff, it didn't really matter. Sounds like an average politician, right? Pretty much. Now, a lot of these changes are going to, again, absolutely just... Everybody that's in the super religious community hates this stuff. And the guy that hates it the most is this dude. This is Ruhollah Khomeini. And he is, at that time, or was at that time, just a very popular cleric. Now, he had begun to get a little bit political. He's got a lot of ideas about how Iran should be properly run. And one of the things that he starts pushing for is that Iran needs to be guarded, and he pushes this guardianship. Iran needs to be guarded from these damaging external ideas. That sounds like a clickbait title. Everyone in the religious community hates this. Yeah, pretty much. And it's like you click on it and it's just like murder. The Iranian version of Santa Claus. Well, he's not coming to your house. He doesn't care. Well, he actually does care if you're naughty or nice, but the difference is he judges that by Sharia. So that was Khomeini. He certainly looks like he has enough friends. He had a lot of supporters, and he's going to end up speaking out very openly against the Shah, and he's going to end up in jail a few times, and then eventually he starts trying to lead organized resistance against the Shah, and the Shah exiles him. He kicks him out of the country. This is in 1964. But that doesn't mean Khomeini is not talking. He's got a big network of support. He just basically moves over to Iraq into a city not far away from the Iranian border, and he is constantly sending messages and recorded messages and like handout leaflet kind of stuff into Iran. He's still very much in contact with his supporters. Now, when we get to the 70s, things are going to shake up, and this is where things start going really bad. So, in the early 70s, there is a gigantic oil boom. The price of oil goes through the roof. Everybody's just making crap tons of money. And oh man, the Shah is going to love this. He's getting all kinds of money. He's doing all of these big works programs. He's lining the pockets of all of his buddies. And the gap between rich people in Iran and poor people in Iran just blows up. And especially what ends up happening is massive inflation. because the rich people can afford to pay 3 times as much, 4 times as much, because they have just gaboodles of money. The poor people can't afford anything. And this is going to start to shift a lot of the opinions in Iran, because a lot of the people that had previously benefited from some of these reforms are going to start seeing the Shah making a whole bunch of money, but their family suffering. And the Shah supporters making a whole bunch of money, but people like them suffering. And especially these people that live in the city that are urban poor are really going to start getting a bad taste in their mouth about the Shah. And the biggest vocal critic of the Shah, Khomeini, right? So things are going to go really great for the Shah and the people at the beginning of the 70s, and then 77 hits. In 1977, the oil bubble blows up, and the country is just like leveled. Inflation goes even further through the roof, because then the economy falls out, and then nobody can afford anything, and everybody's charging everything, and only the super wealthiest can still get anything. One of the Shah's grandsons had an account directly with Chevrolet, right? They loved cars over there. Night, Raveland, good to see you. The Shah owned like an entire fleet of cars, and all sorts of like rare cars, and would drive around in them all the time and kind of show off. And of course that didn't go over very well, right? So the government tries several different ways to fix the inflation problem. They do stuff like price fixing, which doesn't help. They do a lot of sort of like hand wavy kind of things that's designed to end up getting people to lower prices. Like they start putting people in jail if you're a shopkeeper that raises your prices. But all this does is it shifts the economy out of the open market and puts everything moving through a black market. And prices on the black market aren't fixed, they're not policed, and of course they are massively inflated. And all of the things that the Shah is trying to do here would make sense if he would, they make sense on paper, but the system that they had in place already wasn't one that was stable enough to benefit from the programs that he was trying to implement. So the fixes in 77 actually made things worse. And that doesn't go very well at all. And when people start protesting against him, political people within the Iranian parliament start speaking out against him as well, including a lot of these parties like the National Front. There's another Islamic People's Party that's a very conservative religious party. And the Shah's response is, we're going to ban all of the political parties except for mine. And everybody has to join my political party. And you have to pay dues, right? This was not popular. This was a bad move. Openly silencing critics is a good way to turn a lot of people against you. And in the middle of all of this weirdness, Khomeini's son dies. And he was a younger guy, right? He just sort of died. And even the people that are sort of inside Khomeini's supporters say that he had a heart attack, but that doesn't change the optics. A lot of people were like, oh, well, Khomeini's talking bad about the Shah, so the Shah killed his son. And you couldn't convince people that the Shah did not kill Khomeini's son. And what this turns into is 1978. And 1978 is the big bad stuff. Because Khomeini's son he didn't get hit by a Chevy. He died of a heart attack. And it does look like it was natural causes, but nobody would believe that report, right? Everybody was like, well, the Shah, of course, is going to say that he died from natural causes. Lead is natural element, right? Comes from nature. That was a bit of a bullet joke. Anyway, 1978 is when the revolt actually starts. The revolution is going to kick in, and it starts with big protests. And these protests start kind of small to begin with, and the Shah responds to try to put some of the stuff to rest, right? He rolls back the idea that you can only be in one political party. He gets rid of that idea, and that makes people kind of happy. but it doesn't make people all the way happy. He tries to implement some more inflation issues, or some more inflation fixes, and those only again serve to create more unemployed people. One of the things that he tried to do was limit how much manufacturers could charge for goods instead of limiting how much stores could sell goods for. But of course, that means that then production is going to get cut and people are going to lose jobs in the cities. And these are places that had normally been kind of like bastions of his power, but he's creating unemployed people when there are already people out protesting him. So if you're now unemployed because of something that the Shah did, and you know that there's going to be a big rally against the Shah, you've got nothing else to do. You should go rally against him. This literally feeds into the flames that he's trying to put out. It's not very well handled. Eventually, this is going to overwhelm the police. And this is going to end up bringing in the military, right? When the police get overwhelmed by these big riots and these big, some of these marches would have 45, 50,000 people in them, right? You remember your first visit to Johannesburg, South Africa. During your first breakfast, you were reading the local newspaper. The lead story was about a robber being chased by police and committing suicide by putting 2 bullets in the back of his head. Wow, that's unfortunate. That's a pretty horrible way of saying it. Yeah, that's real rough. So when the military gets called in, of course, what's going to end up happening, and you already know what's going to happen. There's going to be riots. The military is going to get pressed, and they're going to shoot people. And people are going to start dying in these protests. And there's a big moment, and in I think it's like either in August or September of '78. One of the biggest movie theaters is called the Rex Theater. Cinema Rex is what it's called. Somebody barred all of the windows and doors of the cinema and lit it on fire, and it killed 422 people. And everybody immediately blamed the Shah, which didn't really make sense, right? Because like movies and Western stuff was like Western meaning not like Western movies, but like stuff from America and Britain. That was kind of his thing. He didn't do it. Somebody admitted to it later on, but in the heat of the moment, no pun intended, because of the giant fire that killed 422 people, everybody blamed the Shah for this, and things just get kicked out so badly. There's this particular event at a place called Gillette Square, where there was a big protest that got violent and the military shot some people, and then some civilians up on buildings started using rifles to snipe out police officers and military. And when that happened, things got like real bad. And the Shah tries to respond to that by like the Shah knows that stuff is getting bad, right? And so he starts trying to like just give anybody anything that they want. Like he fires a whole bunch of people in the military. He fires a whole bunch of the police officers. Dun 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 dun. Dang Karen, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. So this is it's a sticky situation, right? He shuts down a lot of the casinos. The casinos had been really highly targeted by the really conservative Islamic groups, because gambling was, obviously something that they were super against. He also shut down a lot of the nightclubs, especially nightclubs that served alcohol. Dancing, alcohol, both of these things were not really cool with the really conservative crowd, right? So he shut a lot of this stuff down as a way to try to appease these issues, and it didn't work because things had gotten out of hand. The U.S. decides that they're going to get involved in this. So they send a lot of people over, and they start trying to figure out who's going to go, who's going to do what. And initially, the Americans seem to look at this situation like Khomeini was actually interested in establishing a democracy, because he's like super anti-Shah and talking about like letting people have a say-so in the government. But what he really means is we want to let the people that are super Islamic run the country. He was just saying it in a way that kind of looked like he didn't mean we're going to establish a religious hegemony over here. So America initially just kind of like, you should work it out. And the Shah's like, I don't want to work it out. But he kind of ends up having to. And one of the things that he does is he promotes a prime minister from the opposing political party. A guy named Shapur Bakhtiar. Anybody else having stream freezing issues? I hope not. Dan Karen, you might hit refresh. That might help you out. Anyway, so this is Shapur Bakhtiar. And he was not in the sort of Shah party, right? And so the Shah thinks, like, I'm going to appease the group. I'm going to get a prime minister that is not in my political party. So Bakhtiar takes over, and immediately Khomeini is like, nope, that guy's a puppet. And Khomeini gets the leader of Bakhtiar's party to kick him out of the party. Like, nope, we don't want anything to do with him. He's not legitimate. He is a puppet. He is going to go along with the Shah. He's horrible. And immediately everybody hates Bakhtiar. And the U.S. gets involved again. And the Shah kind of comes up with this idea like, well, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm going to get killed, so I need to leave again. I need to pull the old switcheroo. And he wants to designate a sort of royal council that's going to represent the monarchy, but he wants to leave because he feels like he's about to get, murdered. And he was. There were people trying to kill him. And he wants to kind of leave, but he realizes at this point that leaving this time is not going to be the same as when he left in the 50s. If he leaves this time, he's going to have a lot harder time coming back. So he kind of drags his feet and doesn't necessarily want to follow through with this, but it kind of gets out that he was going to at least step aside for a little while and let some more democratic processes happen. And then everybody is like, you go. And America's like, maybe go. I don't really care one way or the other. In January of 79, he leaves. And Bakhtiar is basically at that point the head of state. And he's like, okay, what are we going to do? I think we should recall Khomeini. So Khomeini come back from exile. And Khomeini is like, thank you very much. And he gets off the plane and goes, I'm going to kick his teeth in. And he that's his quote. Somebody's like, what do you think about the government of Shapur Bakhtiar? He's like, I'm going to kick his teeth in. Because he's just a puppet mouthpiece for the Shah. He's illegitimate. Nobody should follow him. Nobody should listen to him. Nobody should do anything that he wants you to do because he's not in charge. I'm in charge. And everybody's like, oh, okay. What do we do, though? Because he's the prime minister. And Khomeini goes, no, he's not. I'll tell you who the prime minister is. The prime minister is a guy named Mehdi Barzargan. Mehdi Barzargan. This guy. So Khomeini says directly, yes, this guy is the prime minister. And everybody's like, but he wasn't elected prime minister and you don't really have power to say who's prime minister. And Khomeini goes, yeah, I do. And all of the people that are on my side also agree that I get to say whatever I want to and that I can run the country. And this is where things get real deadly. Because we've got three different factions now. We've got the Royal Council that are the people that are directly supporters of the Shah, and they're still trying to hang on to control. We've got Bakhtiar, who is the democratically elected leader of the country. And then we've got Barzargan, who is the appointed prime minister by Khomeini. I reject your reality and substitute my own. That's exactly what Khomeini did. That is literally what he did. He's like, none of that matters. I'm the one that's in charge. I'm the one that's going to guard Iran. And he's really big on this word guardianship. We need guardianship from these evil Western ideas. We need the guardianship of Islam, and people need good jurists. This is a word that gets used a lot in Sharia law. These people that are going to be able to interpret the law and the religion as one. And these are going to be the guardians of civility and humility and conservatism in Iran. And this is what we need. Yeah, like, look at me. I am the captain now. This is exactly it. So we've got these three factions. The army doesn't really know what to do. Just to be honest, the army had factions that were loyal to the Shah. The army had factions that were loyal to the democratically elected government. And a lot of the people that were in the military were coming from these low-paying urban jobs that they couldn't make livings off of, or the rural areas where they couldn't make livings off of. So in the military, there are people that are loyal to Khomeini. And this is going to be a big mess because everybody starts shooting at everybody. There are no clear battle lines. Civilians get caught in this stuff. It's hard to estimate how many people got killed in this because we really don't even know, and how many of them were like combatants and how many of them were purged in the mess. It's hard to say. Somewhere between 9 and 10,000 probably. That's sort of the conservative estimate. But what ends up happening, the tipping point, one of the pro-Khomeini military forces ends up taking over a gun factory, specifically a machine gun factory. And inside of this factory, they find a shipment that was about to go out of 50,000 machine guns. And Khomeini says, give it to the people. So Khomeini arms 50,000 citizens that are now part of his army. And this is sort of like when the real chaos starts happening. This is when the United States Embassy gets stormed in 1979. This is when anybody that owned a Western-looking sort of business was targeted. They burned down fast food restaurants, or they burned down casinos. They burned down bars and nightclubs. This was, in a really serious way of saying it here, this was a jihad where they had declared holy war on the West that was inside of Iran. And in the middle of all of this, the military was, again, they're sort of hamstrung. They don't really know who to pay attention to. So what really kind of ends the revolution is when the military commander, the guy that's the head of the military, says, military, your job is to stand down and return to base. And basically the military goes, we don't know who to play. We're killing our own people. Everybody go back to barracks. We're not going to patrol anymore. We're not going to argue anymore. Just go back to barracks. And when that happened, the biggest military force left was the Army of the Revolution. And at that point, Bakhtiar leaves the country. Bakhtiar was like, I'm going to get killed. And he escaped as they were storming his building. There were bullets being shot at him as he was running out of the building. So he got away by like the skin of his teeth, right? And all of this happened under the watchful eye of the CIA. No wonder people make fun of the intelligence. Well, you know, they saw it happening and they didn't stop it. So, I mean, you can say whatever that is about the intelligence part. Their job was to make sure that Iran didn't fall to communists. And Khomeini hated Russia just as much as he hated America. So if you want to look at it as, you know, operational security, their operational security command was don't let Iran fall to communists. And it didn't, so they still won. They didn't really care about the fallout or the bloodshed in the process. It just wasn't communism, so they still won. I know that's a very horrible way of looking at things, but it's also a very pragmatic way of looking at things, and that's really what most of the Cold War was. Cold, super detached pragmatism that involved killing people, which sucks, and it's horrible, and it's something to be ashamed of, and it's something that America should admit and declassify and own up to, but it doesn't always happen. By the way, Bakhtiar does end up getting out of the country. He gets assassinated in 1991 by Iranian Revolutionary Guard assassins. They find him. I think he was in England. I think he made it to London, and I think they killed him in London in 91. Everything else is fine as long as you don't call it communism. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Like, seriously, this was the Cold War. It was on our side or not. And that sucks, but that's the way that it went. So, with the military off the table and Khomeini fully in charge, what happens next? But if America had intervened, wouldn't they have been blamed for sticking their nose in the middle of other people's business? KP, that's a fair question to ask, right? Why is America getting involved in a coup in Iran? Why? Why are we sending our troops over to fight another war in the middle of nowhere in a country that doesn't really matter, right? And that it's like a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation, right? So Khomeini takes over and he starts rebuilding the country, and we're going to change from the Iranian Republic to the Islamic Republic of Iran. America doesn't have to be involved to provide advice to the Shah, telling him what needs to be done. Well, I mean, they were doing that to a certain extent, but even so, he didn't always listen. He was a very direct, headstrong individual that did not really take advice very well. He was told by his own people that a lot of these reforms against inflation weren't going to work, and he did them anyway. Getting involved by sending troops doesn't seem to work out well. Yeah, see, that's another thing. Like, how many and how long, and what's the exit strategy, and what's the goal here? And it's messy stuff. So we set up new organs of state, right? So we need a new government, and this is going to be the Revolutionary Council. The Revolutionary Council is going to be headed by Khomeini. We're going to get a new justice system, which is the Revolutionary Tribunal. And they are going to implement Sharia justice, which is overseen by Khomeini. We're also going to get the Revolutionary Guard, which is still around. This is, you may have seen the very well-known green suits here. This green color is very frequently associated with the Revolutionary Guard. Then, of course, this is a modern picture, but the outfit actually hasn't changed all that much from what the Revolutionary Guard wore back in the late 70s and early 80s. But here's your Revolutionary Guard. Hey, having 50,000 machine guns sitting around in the same place while insurgents are getting angrier is not such a good idea. Yeah, really? Exactly. Not a great idea. So we now have a new Revolutionary Guard. Now, what is important for us to understand, and this is still true in Iran today, the Revolutionary Guard is not part of the army. So you have the army over here that is answerable to the government, and then you have the Revolutionary Guard over here that answers to Khomeini. Now, Khomeini is dead. He's not in charge anymore. Now we have a guy named Khamenei, who's another dude, but just as bad. But the Revolutionary Guard answers to the Ayatollah, not to the government. They're separate entities. And this is why a lot of the stuff that happens in Iran gets handled by the Revolutionary Guard, because it's a way of suppressing everything, right? The military still has a little bit of wiggle room to do stuff kind of unilaterally, but all of the money and all of the good training and all of the good equipment goes to the Revolutionary Guard. something doesn't make sense here. The Americans got into Iran by that Roosevelt spinning politics, etc., but America doesn't do the same things to keep a country. Well, the difference here is Mossadegh was open to renegotiating a lot of these contracts with Iran, and he was open to talking to Russia. They knew that Khomeini was never going to be really interested in Russia, so they don't really care about that. So the military reported to like, yes. But the Revolutionary Guard reports to the Ayatollah or Khomeini, right? So separate units, completely different. There's going to be a big purge. If you were in the government and you supported the Shah, or if you were in the government and you supported Bakhtiar, you might be dead. If you were in the media and had ever published anything about Khomeini that wasn't startlingly supportive, you might be dead or in jail. There were thousands of people that got jailed, beaten, killed during this big purge that happened in the 1979, 1980, and 81, especially. In the middle of this, Bajragan, the guy that Khomeini had put in power, goes, I'm just going to quit being prime minister. And Khomeini's like, yeah, it was a bad idea to put you in there anyway. I'm running the country. So it's pretty evident to even the people that are in the elected government that they're not actually running anything. Khomeini decides we need to have a new system of voting. Okay, how are we going to do that? Well, I get to oversee it. And we're going to vote first to end the monarchy. So they vote to end the monarchy. So the Shah is formally removed from power. Now, it's notable that basically everybody but Khomeini's supporters boycotted the vote. Right? So it passed with 98% support, but half the country didn't even vote on it because they didn't consider Khomeini legitimate. They write a new constitution. Guess who writes it? Well, Khomeini writes it. And this new constitution is going to effectively build a shrine around Sharia law. And it sets up this new concept, or this new governmental group called the Council of Guardians, again with this concept of we are guarding the people. And the Council of Guardians has final veto over everything. If the government passes a bill and the prime minister signs off of it, the Council of Guardians can veto it. If the head of the military gives a military command, the Council of Guardians can shut it down. Nothing happens in Iran without the Council of Guardians' approval. And of course, this is headed by the Ayatollah. So again, nothing can happen without his approval. And this is going to end the revolution, but it also sets up the Islamic Republic of Iran. So this is where we get the modern country. And by the time we get to 81, 82, Iran doesn't look the same as it did just 4 years before. So that is the Iranian Revolution. Khomeini's version of the law. Well, it's not even necessarily his version of the law. It's his interpretation of the Quran's version of the law, because he's, again, basing all of this off of Islamic teachings, which, of course, are very, very conservative. This is why, they still chop people's hands off for theft in Iran. This is why stoning is still a legal penalty in Iran. All of the Western rules that the Shahs had made were eliminated. All of the, well, not all, but a lot of the reforms that they put into place were eliminated. And it was basically Khomeini gets to decide everything. So that's how it went down. I know that was a bit longer than normal, but this is it's a big topic, and I wanted to make sure that I could explain all of this stuff kind of as a go in one big run. Carter sent a bunch of Iranian students back to Iran in 79. Yeah, so Carter gets involved in some of this stuff because the Carter administration was the one in charge when a lot of this went down, and Carter was sort of convinced that Khomeini was really just a religious guy that was going to get back in and establish a good democracy. And Carter was ultimately too naive in this situation. This is also where we get, actually not too long after the material here on the stream would end, we have the Iranian hostage crisis where they kidnap all these people in airplanes, right, or on an airplane in Iran. And that was mostly because America had sort of spoken out against what was going on in Iran. And then he was like, no, you didn't. Right? Did you know that cannabis is illegal? We've had this conversation before. It is big stuff. It is, well, I mean, it's a clear dictatorship. And Khomeini didn't even try to hide that. He was just saying, yes, it's a dictatorship and I'm in charge. So was the position of prime minister eliminated? No, it wasn't. It's still there. But you don't get to run for the office without his approval. So, like people like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, if you remember that guy from a few years ago, he's handpicked by the Ayatollah. The current guy, Rouhani, handpicked by the Ayatollah. You get to be prime minister because he says so. How was Khomeini's replacement chosen? They picked him Khomeini pretty much made it clear who was supposed to be next, but then they had an election of religious officials that sort of kind of looked like the Pope. Like how they choose a Pope where they get all the leaders of the groups together. These imams. So imam is just a word for a religious leader. Sometimes they're called mullahs, specifically if we're talking about Shia Islam. And they kind of got together and had an Ayatollah conclave almost. But it was pretty clear that they knew who was going to get picked. If I recall correctly, there was also a student movement and secular leftist movement in the revolution that was shunned to... Oh, absolutely. Because again, the Shah was not popular with many people. So what you're talking about, Nintendo, a lot of the people, especially with the students, those were people that hated the Shah because he was basically turning the country into his own little plaything. And he had this massive amounts of wealth, and they were especially educated people, so they knew about all the corruption and stuff. So they weren't in favor of him. They were people pushing for a more truly democratic Iran. And they pretty much ended up supporting Bakhtiar, even though he wasn't necessarily their favorite person. A lot of the students, secularists, or people that were on the left ended up kind of falling into the Bakhtiar camp because at least he represented democracy. Bazargan was a puppet, and Khomeini was basically Bazargan's puppet master. And the Shah was this sort of decadent, unilateral monarchist, right? And they didn't really care for him very much at all. So there were women involved in this. I could have done 2 or 3 streams on this and gone into all the different ins and outs, but just to try to get this down into, a compartmentalized 2-hour chunk, you gotta skim some stuff out, right? That doesn't mean that it's not important. That just means that I only had a certain amount of time to do stuff, right? So, but that is that. Your mind can't take anymore. I understand. It's a lot of stuff to try to keep in straight. Does anybody else have any more questions about this, though? I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can move on to kind of the next phase of the stream, and that is going to be voting. If I can get to my dashboard. There we go. Brittany says, what's in the news? And asks, what's in the news about Iran? Well, one of the big things that just happened yesterday was the European Union decided against labeling the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, which is something that they had threatened. Now, why did they threaten that? Well, if you get on the sort of like the bad list, the naughty list, right? That opens up a lot of surveillance that they can do about you. They can do a whole bunch of like arresting people. They can charge people in international court. And a lot of the people that are in the Revolutionary Guard are they're sort of kleptocrats themselves, right? They've weaseled their way into positions in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard so that they can be super fabulously wealthy, because there's a lot of money coming out of Iran. They still make a crap ton of oil over there, right? They also have a lot of mining, especially down in the southeast, like rare earth metals and things like lithium, right? So they're not a poor country. That money has to go somewhere. So if you get labeled on the naughty list, a lot of that stuff goes down. But what ended up happening was this was an attempt by the EU to leverage the government about the big protest. So again, going all the way back to the summer, not the summer, going all the way back, well, I don't know, has it been going on since the summer? I can't remember when the protest started now, because my sense of time is just completely borked. But the protests against the government are pretty dramatic right now. They're some of the biggest ones that have happened since the revolution. I'm still not convinced that they're going to go anywhere. I know I said that a couple of months ago, and I told people not to get excited about reform and serious change in Iran. I'm still not convinced that any of this is going anywhere. The Iranian regime right now is so powerful in comparison to the average person in Iran. I still don't know if even the protests that they have right now are going to be enough to change anything. But this is why the international community is responding the way that they are, right? Like Dame Karen says, are they doing trade sanctions? Yeah, America just put another round of trade sanctions in. But if we're just being for real, this is not necessarily going to hurt the regime, because nobody's going to stop buying oil. The only way to really wreck Iran is to stop buying their oil. And nobody's going to do that, because that would cause oil prices to skyrocket, and nobody's going to tolerate that. The people of these countries that might place trade sanctions against Iran aren't going to tolerate gas prices going up. There was a gigantic outroar of price going up because of boycotting Russian oil, when the Russians are obviously wrong. Now, the government in Iran is obviously wrong as well, and they shouldn't be suppressing the civil rights and civil liberties of their population. They shouldn't be killing people for not wearing a headscarf. But the difference here is, and I'm not trying to be crass, I'm just trying to say what it is, Ukrainian people look white. Iranian people don't. And if you don't understand how much power that has in politics and international politics, it's a lot. That's a lot of power. People are willing to bend over backwards to help people that look like them. And Iranian people look like those people that flew planes into buildings. And I know that is super simplistic and knee-jerk and stupid, but that's how a lot of people think. And it's tough to say that and mean it, but it's true. That's the sociologist and the historian talking, right? So, although I didn't understand it, you watched it on TV. That's fair. I wasn't around. Iran has submitted an application to become a member of the group of emerging economies known as BRICS, an Iranian official said on Monday. That I know what that is, but I don't know if that's going to help them. There's a lot of international pressure against them being admitted to that. Trade sanctions mean nothing. Look at North Korea and Iran, two of the most sanctioned countries in the world, but one has developed the atomic bomb, the other one's getting closer. Yeah, exactly. Especially without Russian oil, right? Financial sanctions are terrible, though. They tend to hurt the people already hurt by the regime. Exactly, Dame Karen. Exactly. The opinion hat. It has been summoned. Let me catch up with chat just to make sure that I'm not... same as how refugees are treated. Absolutely. Okay, so the opinion hat has been summoned. I must now give opinion, and we all know that it is an opinion because I look opinionated, right? Okay, so what did I think about the Iranian nuclear deal when it was still a thing? Any deal that keeps fewer nuclear weapons on the surface of the earth is a good deal. The Iranian nuclear deal was not perfect, but it did have teeth and it did work. It was a dumb move for the United States to get out of it. That was a very poor decision by the Trump administration. It was done out of pique. It wasn't necessarily done out of thought. It was mostly trying to undo everything President Obama did. There was not good logic behind it. It was not a perfect plan. It was not a perfect plan. It wasn't. It really wasn't. It still allowed for a lot of stuff, but it was better than nothing. And we should have kept it. We should have kept it. That's my opinion. Trying to appease the idiots. Well, it was trying to appease the base for certain. Because anything that Obama did was just wrong and bad, right? So, and this was something that I could be critical about the Trump administration in multiple situations. One of the things that the Trump administration tried to do in multiple occasions was get rid of something before they had something else in place to do it better, right? Like if you want to get rid of the Iranian deal, cool, fine, okay. What's the better solution? You work that out first and you get people to agree to it, then you transition off the bad deal to the good deal. You don't kill the bad deal and then have nothing, right? The same thing with Obamacare, right? We were going to get rid of the American Health Care Act. What are you going to have instead? Oh, we'll figure that out after. No, you don't do that after. You come up with a new plan that's better, you pass it, and then you phase the old one out. You don't just go, we'll figure it out, we'll put the pressure on them. No, that's bullcrap. You don't do it that way. That's not the way you run a government. Like if we had problems with the military, we go, okay, we're just going to dissolve the military and then we'll come up with a new idea later. No, you don't do that junk. It's just dumb. I could criticize multiple situations like, oh, we're going to fix the tax plan. Okay, how are you going to fix the tax plan? Well, we're going to start by cutting a whole bunch of stuff and then we'll phase some new stuff in. No, you're not. You're just going to cut taxes and let people walk away with millions of dollars, you buttholes. No, it just didn't work that way. So that's my opinion. If you're going to say it's a bad plan, say it's a bad plan. It was not the best plan. There were problems. It gave Iran a lot of leverage to deny stuff. It was better than nothing, right? I had the best words, right? Exactly. Republicans' idea of governance is just complaining about the other side's policies. That does seem to be very frequent. But I will say this. For the last 2 years of Biden's plan, Democrats haven't been able to get on board with the same ideas very much either. So they could have passed a lot more if they could have gotten everybody on board. And I know that Manchin was a giant stick in the mud, and Sinema didn't help either. So it wasn't all of the Democrats. It was just some of them. But that's what you got to get. Okay, so here's what we're about to do. Democrats. All right. Here we go, everybody. Here's the plan. We're about to vote for what's going to be the next viewer request stream. But here's how this is going to work. Because it is a viewer request stream, I'm going to take what you all want to talk about. So I have gone into the last poll and chosen the number 2 winner, or the number 2, like the runner-up of the last poll. And I've brought it over to this poll. That option was the breakup of Yugoslavia. Now, what I would like from you all, the viewers, whatever you want to talk about on the next viewer request stream. So I'll take the next 3 options that are feasible and doable. Catherine the Great, that's a great one. I read a book all about her. Moose is going back to the Crusades. Third Crusade is a good one. It still surprises me. I missed some stuff here. Because most of the actual Republican policies stink and nobody would vote for them. There are good conservative policies. Not all of the conservative policies are bad. You want to solve the problems in American politics, get rid of the political parties like the Founding Fathers wanted. I agree. I also think that we could get rid of the money and have a lot of impact. It still surprises me how the U.S. has gotten away with all this without basic citizens' healthcare. Right? Exactly. Who was Humpty Dumpty anyway? Democracy. We would have to really narrow that one down, Dane Karen. That's a very, very broad. Eleanor of Aquitaine. Okay, we'll take that one. All right, so here's what's about to happen. I'm going to hit this button. And when I hit this button, everybody's going to get a chance to vote. And I do mean everybody. If you are one of the 26 people within the sound of my voice right now, you get to vote. It doesn't matter if you're going to be here. It doesn't matter if this is the first time that you've ever been in chat. It doesn't matter if you're a follower or a subscriber. You get to vote. It doesn't matter. You get to vote. Make your voices heard. How about we talk about you and your college experiences in becoming a historian? Tanker, catch me on a Gundam stream when I'm building a model. I would be happy to talk about that. Could you stretch out the theories of who? No, I mean, like that would be like maybe an hour, maybe, and that would be a lot of stretching. A lot of stretching. Now this is a democracy, right? Everybody go vote, and it looks like we're going to end up with ties. Hey, I'm getting a follow by President Obama. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. President Obama, thank you so much for that follow. I appreciate it, and I respect that a lot. Thanks so much for the follow, President Obama. Welcome to the chat. To quote that really creepy guy from Get Out, I would have voted for you for a third term. Yeah, there we go. Everybody gets to vote. We still got some time. That sounded more like Clinton. I don't know. I don't do a very good President Obama joke. Impression, rather. You were saying the next year request was... Oh, it was being decided by democracy. Yeah. Ex-president, not the current president, George Santos. Oh, yeah, George Santos was there. Swap mine from Third Crusade to Eleanor of Aquitaine. I don't know what that means, Moose. Like, did you vote for one and you meant to vote for another? Oh, Moose. What's up, Maddie? Did I misspell her name? I'm horrible at spelling. So we should have one fewer on the Crusade. Well, it doesn't look like that one's going to win anyway. And 2, Eleanor of Aquitaine. Oh, that does make it look like something's going to win. So somebody needs to vote and break this tie, because I really don't want to have a tie. I really, really don't like ties. Somebody else vote before we lose time. Somebody's going to go vote. Well, you know, there we go. Hey, that broke that up. Okay, cool. No, somebody else go vote. Oh, it's a rush at the end. Hey, Yugoslavia won right at the end. Okay. Everybody was like trying to like snipe it like on eBay or something. This is a far more active vote. Yeah, this is a lot. A lot of people voted. What have we got? 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 votes. That's most of the people in chat. So that's great. I'm glad that we got a lot of votes there. Tad's random vote won. Tad random voted for Yugoslavia breakup, which is going to be a really messy stream. We had high turnout in the last votes. That's good. I like that. For those of you that voted for Catherine the Great, never fear. Catherine the Great will show up on the next poll as the number 2 runner-up here. Quick game theory tip. When you say you hate ties, people vote more to troll you. I would rather have more people vote than not. So even if they vote more and we end up with a bigger tie, that's okay. History of Poland is getting screwed by its neighbors. We did History of Poland. Well, specifically, we did the history of medieval Poland. So, I mean, I guess we could do the history of modern Poland. Balkan talk. Prepare to have brain aches. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the Balkans, and it's important for us to understand that because it still has a lot of impact. Like, right, I mean, even right now, Serbia and Kosovo are still fighting, right? And the EU just told Serbia today that if they don't straighten up and act their age, that the EU might not let Serbia in. even though they've already voted to let them in, and Serbia's already started doing transition. EU said we could put the brakes on that if if Serbia and Kosovo don't normalize relations. But that's going to be a big problem for Serbia because Serbia doesn't recognize that Kosovo exists in the first place. It's a big sticking point over there. Third century Balkan War of the yeah, exactly. Serbia needs to chill its ill. Okay, so do I think that Kosovo should be a country? I don't have a problem with Kosovo being a country. Do the people that live in Kosovo that are Serbians that were part of Serbia or were part of a greater country that would be Serbia that want to be part of Serbia, should they be forced to live in Kosovo or should they be given representative possibility here? That's a different question, right? Like the border of Kosovo has never been settled. And not everybody in the international community agrees that Kosovo should exist. I'm a big believer in national self-determination. I think that people should be able to live in their own country and have their own right to rule themselves all day long. But I also think that if there is a massive population of Serbian people in Kosovo, which there is, especially in the north and over in the east, and those people consider themselves part of Serbia, and they've even had Serbian governmental support. So, like, one of the big things that happened a couple of weeks ago was Kosovo said that they're no longer going to recognize Serbian license plates because a lot of people living in Kosovo were going to Serbia to get their license plate. So, like, these people were paying taxes in Serbia, but, like, living in Kosovo. I think that those people should be able to decide where they want to live. If they want to be part of Serbia, I think they should be able to be part of Serbia. And I know that's not the popular stance for a lot of people, but again, if we're going to be for real and we're going to let people have the right to pick where they want to live, that seems to me to be something that's fairly basic here. And if you want to flip that around and go, does that mean Donetsk and Luhansk should be able to be part of Russia? Yeah, why not? You get an actually recognizable internationally watched legitimate polling data out of Luhansk and Donetsk and show that they want to be part of Russia by a majority of eligible voters where the voter turnout is good, not like 10% or some garbage like that. Yeah, sure, let them go. But the stuff that Russia pulled off is hot garbage, and everybody knows that it was an illegitimate referendum, right? What I mean is that Serbia will be a billion times better off being in the EU. Well, I mean, yeah, Serbia stands a lot to benefit. Macedonia lost its history and identity. I mean, that whole thing with Greece and NATO and Macedonia having to change its name to North Macedonia, that was just atrocious. That whole thing was just That's the same reason used in Macedonia. As a result, Macedonia lost its history and identity to Greece and is still not in the EU. Shane, have you ever heard of Peter Zayon? And if so, what's your opinion of him? I don't know enough about his particular arguments to say anything about it. I've heard of the guy, and I know that he's got some kind of hot take stuff. And I know that some of the people in the academic world sort of talk about him, but I've never directly been involved with any of his stuff. So I don't have an opinion. Well, I mean, I could give you a speculative opinion based on what other people say, but I don't really like giving speculative opinions based on what other people say. I like to say what I say. Okay, it's time for me to end because I've been on stream now for 2.5 hours and I've already talked for 3 hours today, and my voice is starting to do that thing in the back of my throat where it feels like I'm about to lose it. So I've got to teach for the rest of the week, which means I need to shut up now. So we're going to go do a raid. Let's see who's around.
In this crazy shit that's happening, it's like someone could just come up and key your car.
I think we're going to go raid my buddy Agni, who's on. So Agni is a philosopher and chess tutor, and is a pretty smart dude and a pretty cool guy. So we're going to go raid Evolve Yourself TV and show Agni some love when we get over there. When we show up in the chat, yell adventure. And if you have those lovely adventure hat emotes, throw those in the chat too. But until Thursday. If you come back on Thursday, we'll be talking about China, specifically China in the 9th century. So kind of the downhill angle of the Tang Dynasty. Unfortunately, not so great of a period of time to be in China, but it's interesting to talk about. So come on back on Thursday. We'll talk about China. And until then, everybody take it easy and have a good couple of days. See you next time.